and welcome to another evening of frank conversation coming to you from our studios here in Abuja. I'm Maokpe Ogun-Yusuf. It's a solemn day here in Nigeria as yet again another batch of young girls have been reported abducted from a government secondary school, Jangebe, in Zamfara State, northwest Nigeria. Zamfara had come under relentless attacks from bandits in previous months, but now maintains a pacifist policy towards the marauders, encouraging them who have taken up residence in the country's forests to lay down their arms in exchange for amnesty. This policy has raised big controversy in many quarters, especially amongst governors of the northern region. Their current place of abode, that's that of the bandits, which are the forests in different parts of the country, have also come under focus. On the 18th of this month, during Senate screenings for ambassadorial positions, the former Chief of Defense Staff, Gabriel Olonisaki, had this to say about the forests in the country.
3 years ago, I conducted a research on the forest in the country. I realized we have over 1,000 forest reserves. I sent the team to Kenya. They went to Kenya and brought out a paper, and I said then 3 years ago that our next crisis will be in the forest. Some governors were invited. We told them, because most of the forests are the prerogative of states. The states took over all the forest reserve. And I said too, we had to protect the forest. We had to send things to the forest to protect the forest. This 3 years ago, 2018, we did a research, and for 6 months, we did it that apart from what we're facing in the northeast, the next problem we're going to have is the forest. But again, usually until it's with us right now. So it is a multifaceted approach. Everyone has to come on board.
Similarly, in November of 2017, on this program, we had spoken to the Conservator General, who had spoken about the biggest challenges facing the National Park Service.
Our basic challenge in the environment is not poaching. Our basic challenge in the environment is habitat loss through deforestation, logging.
What about herdsmen? We've also heard incidences of, where herdsmen are taking their cattle through the forest.
That is the second greatest challenge I was going to mention. Because as I am talking to you now, one of the national parks in Kaduna State, that is Kamuku National Park, is partially being encroached by cattle rustlers. That is herdsmen and people who rustle cattle. So that has been a greatest challenge to us. And in order to thwart that, we are currently working with the Nigerian Army in that forest. And this is the reason you see kidnapping and armed robbery tend to be higher in that axis between Benungwari, Fontua, and maybe Gusau areas. But the National Park officials and the Nigerian Army, Nigerian Police, we are networking to ensure that we are able to at least disengage these people from this place so that the park is secure.
So in other words, the threat that you face in Kaduna, it's not something that the rangers could have handled by themselves?
Yes, it's not, because it goes beyond the park. That is why we have to bring in the army, the police, and the other security agencies, because some of them use the park. Remember what happened in Sambisa, or what is happening in Sambisa now. Sambisa was a forest reserve which was taken over by bandits or insurgents, made it their hideout. Today, Sambisa is a ghost of itself. So the same scenario is what is being attempted in some of these forest reserves, apart from even the national parks.
From the testimonies of both men, we were forewarned. The question is, did we take any precaution? Some food for thought there as we await the rescue of students seized from both Kagara in Niger State and now those taken from Jangebe in Zamfara State. Tonight, however, we focus on the impressions these stories create for external perception of us as a people and what we're losing as a country. Mercy Abang, a Berlin-based journalist and an entrepreneur, and Dr. Dipo Awojide, a senior lecturer at the Nottingham Business School, are our guests tonight. Mercy and Dipo, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you, Mark, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marpe.
Yet another abduction. I don't know how you're both taking this in. How has this hit you? Let's start with you, Mercy.
I don't have words to say. You know, I just saw the news and I was devastated again and again and again, and it shows the level of insecurity in the country. But more importantly, I am just worried that parents will have to start withdrawing their children from schools because the state can no longer secure them.
And, you know, one of the things is you are a journalist. You know how sensitive coverage of this sort of things are. One abduction happened 2 weeks ago, in less than 2 weeks, while we're still trying to get the rescue of those ones. Another abduction again. I'm sure you must have gotten calls from fellow journalists. As a journalist of Nigerian origin living in the diaspora, how are you handling this as a Nigerian and also as a journalist?
Frank, to be honest, how am I handling this? I had to bury my head in shame at some point, but then I also realized that it is a situation we have to try to explain to the world and tell the world the situation we are in as a country. But we can't be saying, as a journalist, I can't be saying something that is in contradiction with what state actors are saying or with what governors are saying. For instance, while you're saying that you're under siege by terrorists, you see images with governors literally paying off these terrorists in the same breath. How are we going to marry the two events? So yesterday there were images from the Zamfara state government where people, terrorists, bandits, depending on who you're listening to, said they had repented and they were granted amnesty. Less than 6 hours to that event, 317, the last number, of schoolgirls abducted in the same state. So understanding what's going on for me, it's like there's an entire business or as it were, a startup that is being funded by state actors, backed by non-state actors, to ensure that the business of abduction is taken seriously. And the criminals are also taking it seriously. We can see what they're doing. We're yet to rescue the children in Niger State, Kagara. Right now, we are jumping to another situation in Zamfara State. So what are we saying? We're saying that as they are picking up people, we are paying them off and they're abducting more people. Increasingly, Abuja is being surrounded. From Kaduna Expressway to Niger State, you know, there are cases of kidnappings also in Nasarawa State. If it's not happening in Abuja yet, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But we should not wait until it does happen. These children of Nigerians, as far as Kagara, as far as Zamfara State, you know, are also children of Nigerians and children of people. And we need to take it seriously as a country. At some point, I feel like this is a point where all the political actors at some point need to sit down on the table and look at themselves in the face and say, this is a time to end the politics of, you know, of either the APCs of the PDP.
Dipo, you are a lecturer, abroad, and I'm sure you're looking in as well. I'm sure you also know that this has implication for education. What are your immediate thoughts on listening and hearing another abduction this time around in Zamfara State?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. For me, it's a case of shame, embarrassment, and disappointment. It is very disappointing that, you know, abduction and kidnapping, you know, continues to happen in our schools. It is very embarrassing and very shameful that, you know, the government is allowing these things to happen. We shouldn't be, you know, children should not have to, you know, little boys and girls should not have to go through this sort of traumatic experiences. These are, you know, 11, 12, 13-year-old, you know, little boys and girls, you know, taken into forest, for days, for weeks, without food, without water. It just doesn't make any sense. And, this is a clear, failure of the government. And you would just expect that, nothing else of this nature happens again. But time and time again, you wake up and there's a bad news somewhere. It's either in Zamfara or in Niger State or in Katsina. It's one state after the other. And it just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I'm even stuttering trying to get the questions out. But Mercy, I'm going to put this to you, and I'm going to have to let you go because I understand the constraints that you're under right now. But again, I don't know what you've heard fellow journalists say to you. First, journalists abroad, whether they're asking you questions, not just trying to analyze the situation, but also in terms of what you understand by what is going on. Are you also trying to get their own impressions of your country as we speak?
To be honest, I don't think I really care much about, what the foreign journalists are saying. They're all jumping on the story and calling Nigeria, all sorts of names, which you can rightly say they are not completely wrong. What I am interested in as a Nigerian is asking some of the questions that I have heard some of them say. For instance, let's start with the role of Sheikh Gumi, for instance. Who appointed him a negotiator with the state actors and non-state actors? He has been out there, parading himself on television and the news and acting as the face between the government and the bandit. Again, maybe I'll leave the government out of this. Between the bandits. Who is saying what? There's been no reaction from the federal government to say, yes, we appointed him to do this. Why is he doing this? And what is his role? From the comments he's made so far, there have been nothing but extremely divisive and explaining and telling people on how to refer to terrorists in a way that panders towards their narrative and what they intend to put out there. For me, I am very much concerned about it. And I think the Nigerian people need to start asking the question, what is the role of Sheikh Gumi? Because you cannot
without prejudice to the question, without prejudice to the questions you're posing, and I'm going to let you pose a lot more. Some people will say, does he have to be appointed? If he believes that he could help in the situation, shouldn't he have stood up to help?
Absolutely, yes. But does that show the failure of the state? If yes, how was he able to move and we could see meetings, images showing meetings with these terrorists, and the government will say they don't know where these people are? Or is the government saying that they are now incapacitated, that they can no longer find out and stop, these armed groups? But Sheikh Gumi can do that. So, I don't want to say they collude, but I would say that these are the questions that Nigerians and the Nigerian people deserve to know, and the world needs to know. That way, we know that we have a government that can account for the children of all of these people. We have a government that can say that children can go to school and live freely without the fear of being abducted tomorrow. Because today we are talking about Zamfara State. Yesterday we were talking about Niger State. A day before yesterday we were talking about Chibok. My concern now is, are we going to be talking about Abuja tomorrow? Are we going to be talking about Lagos tomorrow? So until we ask the people playing active roles in negotiating with these terrorists, I don't think there's any other conversation we should be having. So if Sheikh Gumi is already having this conversation, what is he saying with them? What's the state of the children abducted in Niger State, for instance? Because they have still not been released. We listened to the governor yesterday, said he has been abandoned by the federal government of Nigeria. Why has he been abandoned by the federal government of Nigeria? If a governor is saying that right now he's dealing with the situation alone, what happens to the fate of the children that have been abducted in Zamfara State?
Well, I doubt that very few people would disagree with you on that, Mercy. Well, we have to say thank you for coming on Hard Copy, and we will continue this conversation when we come back from this break with Dr. Dipo Awojide. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. We've been speaking with Mercy Abang, a Berlin-based journalist and an entrepreneur. And we still have with us Dr. Dipo Awojide, a senior lecturer at the Nottingham Business School. And we're looking at how Nigerians abroad are perceiving the situation back home. Well, the last time I had you on this show, I think, was some 2 years ago or so. We were talking about unemployment, which was a roaring monster waiting to be addressed. And you had some very practical tips to Nigerian young people, most especially. I'm wondering now, looking at what is currently going on, looking at how pressing the security situation is right now, what would you first of all be saying to young people who are still looking to fulfill their dreams without leaving this country? Would you still say to them that it's worthwhile to stay here?
Thank you very much, Mark. I think it's a very tricky question to answer because not everybody is going to relocate abroad. Not every young person, who aspires to leave Nigeria and relocate to the US, UK, or Canada would actually get, that opportunity. So, we just have to continually advocate, for good governance. We have to continually advocate, for a better country, irrespective of where we are, either based abroad or based in Nigeria. So these kidnaps, for example, as I noted earlier, it doesn't make any sense. It's an attack on our schools. It's an attack on our educational institutions. It's an attack on the entire country. And, the bigger picture is that it is going to have a negative impact on the amount of foreign direct investment that Nigeria can actually attract. It is going to have a negative impact on trade investment. It's going to have a negative impact on, job creation. So, irrespective of where we are, young people, either in the country or outside the country, we have to continually demand for action, from the government. And this includes, the federal government and the state government. Because if these sort of kidnaps continue, schools are not safe. A lot more younger people are not in education because their parents are scared. Companies are not investing, both local and international companies, they are scared of investing. Where does that lead us to?
Very depressing picture indeed. And I'm trying my best not to depress viewers even further than what the news already presents. But, looking at what we currently have, do you see a way out? Only recently, late last year, towards the end of the year, we saw NSAS protests. We saw some activism on the parts of young people. You were also at the forefront of that protest in the UK where you reside. Do you see us banding together as young people, or maybe I should put that more directly, do you see young people coming together to demand what it is that they ought to demand of their country and for their country?
Yeah, earlier today, I've been on Twitter and on Clubhouse, listening to conversations and reading tweets. And, majority of young people, irrespective of their tribal affiliations or religious affiliations, we have all spoken in one voice. People are calling on the government to act. All our friends and, folks in APC and PDP, everybody is tired. Why? Because these bandits, these terrorists, they don't care what political party you belong to, or, what God you pray to, or, whatever. They don't care. And it is, I'm very, very impressed that, and this doesn't happen, too frequently, that young people actually come together, speaking with one voice and making a demand of the government. So young people are calling on the federal government led by President Muhammadu Buhari. They are calling on state government to act. No parent actually deserves, having their kids in bushes and in forests for days and sometimes for weeks. The kids who were kidnapped from Niger State last week have not been released. Today, over 300 girls have now been kidnapped in another school in Zamfara State. Again, it doesn't make any sense, and we hope that the government will act immediately.
Well, Dikwa, the divisions are there anyway. You are online. You maintain a very strong online presence. You have a huge following as well. You cannot deny the fact that, yes, in some quarters, young people have come together to, demand for good governance and are united on what their call is. But the divisions are there, and it would seem that the strife seems to be getting deeper. How do you think that as young people, or maybe not as young people, but how do you think that we can address those divisions, especially for the unity of the country?
So, Mark, even in heaven, the devil revolted against God, and there's always going to be division. Can it be managed? Yes. People are always going to have differences. Some are going to join the APC, some are going to join the PDP, and some are going to be apolitical. Some are, just going to be, somewhere in the middle, voting for whoever they think the best candidate or the best party, is in any election cycle. But these divisions can actually be managed, and they can actually be reduced. And it starts from the top. If we have political leaders who don't, practice full-blown nepotism, if there's no favoritism, if you treat, bandits from one part of the country, in a less harsh way than you treat, separatists from another part of the country, then you're always going to have division. So if the government does what is right, if there's less favoritism, less nepotism, and you treat everybody equally, irrespective of their tribe and their language or where they come from the part of the country, the division is going to reduce.
But amongst ourselves, amongst the people themselves, is there anything more that they can do apart from whatever government is going to do?
Yeah, for young people, for those of us who are not, fully into political, as political members or into politics in Nigeria, we continue to, try to be as objective as possible on every issue. People would always have their biases, and that's entirely fine. With young people, we continually encourage people, to say the truth and be objective, and that's all we can do. But I do believe strongly that what is actually causing the division amongst young people, and why a lot more people are not listening, or why a lot more people, continue to fan, basically continue to, engage in ethnic comments and ethnic divisive comments, is because they see what the government is doing. They see what our leaders are doing, with less favoritism, with less nepotism, with the government actually acting, in an objective manner and fashion. Whenever there is a clash, perhaps an ethnic clash, we are going to see less division amongst young people.
I'm wondering whether you're as optimistic as you were when you came on this program 2 years ago. Do you still hold that optimism in your heart?
I remain an eternal optimist. But whenever I say this on social media, a lot of my friends and, a couple of people say, oh, Dikwa, but you are in the UK. Why not come to Nigeria? Come and tweet from Nigeria. I'll say this from Nigeria. I don't live in Nigeria, but I'm also invested in the country. Some of my siblings live there. My parents live there. I have businesses in Nigeria. I pay salaries of around 40 people on a monthly basis. I pay taxes to the government on a monthly basis. So, when I say I am optimistic about the country, it is not me, sitting on a fancy chair in London and sipping my wine or my glass of champagne. I indeed am very optimistic about Nigeria. And I do hope that one day we would get it right. I do sincerely hope that one day we would have, more visionary leaders. We would have leaders who put the entire country above their tribe or above their religion. I do hope that one day we would have regional governments who are sincere and, really concerned about the progress and development of their regions.
Well, on that note of optimism, we're hoping that our viewers will light a candle from your optimism as well. We have to thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maope, for having me.
Well, that's the program tonight. Questions, comments are welcome to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maope Ogunyusuf. Good night.